Hello and welcome to Big Bad Books, the podcast where Isaac reads them so we don't have to.
That's not the always tagline. That's just for this season.
No, that's how it is. We've had a little conversation off
Who's
of
we?
Air. You and I and the listenership.
That.
Well, maybe you're possibly in a sort of fugue state, maybe in the altered state. But there's no legal reason why that means it shouldn't matter.
Oh, curious.
But yeah, so Isaac's going to be the one to read them sort of indefinitely.
Cool. Okay. Well, I guess we'll discuss that again in future just to check. And who are you?
Well, I'm Declan.
Nice.
But it almost doesn't matter who I am because I'm not the one doing the reading.
Books for you?
Books. Often it's pages, though. Yeah. For you, it's screens.
Never pages for me. I hate the feel of the things.
Really?
Oh,
I
despicable.
love it. Oh, it's
Tell
beautiful.
you what. The only ones I like are those
them.
Bible ones where it's so wafer thin that you can just eat a whole page. Like the wafer on a Tom and Jerry cake.
You're not eating the Bible, are you?
The word was in me all along. It's coming from inside the body.
So I teach at a Catholic school.
Oh yeah. Do they eat the Bible? They
don't.
Okay.
But now that sort of COVID restrictions have been largely lifted, it means that we have to go to mass as staff.
Oh no!
Right? So
How often?
I'm not sure, but more often than I'd like. I think, given that they didn't go the whole hog and have incense, which for me is 90% of the reason to be going.
Do you get the little bread, the body and blood?
Well, I didn't. I've never had my first communion, so no.
They don't know. They don't check.
No, I know.
That's
but
spoiler.
The story is leading up to this, right? Which is that. So we had our first sort of staff mass that I've ever been part of the other day, and myself and one of the people from my department were in the lift on the way down, and one of the guys who's been there for a long time got in. And my colleague, she was like, "Oh, how long is this going to last? Like, how long do these things last?"
Probably a while.
And he was like, "Well," he was like, "about an hour." He was like, 45 minutes.
This is part of the school day. They have to do an hour of going
No.
to church.
Like
right.
this is because we had an inset day.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So it's just staff.
Staff have to go to church.
Yeah.
That's
I know.
wild.
They've got a chapel inside the school.
This is some
right?
separation of church and state shit. Like I would be campaigning for this to stop.
To be honest, it's an hour of my day where I'm not having to do much.
I suppose.
But I did get in, and I was like, "Fucking hell!" Like I looked at the order of service, it was like 4 pages front and back. But yeah, he was like about an hour. He was like 45 minutes if you get a priest who talks quickly. and like we got in, and first of all, the priest, I've never known a person speak slower in my life. And because the whole thing was printed out, right? So it was obviously literally every word was printed, apart from the homily. And he like approached it as if he was making it up on the spot. So before every section, he just have a little pause, like look upwards and a think.
Well, acting is reacting,
and then start. Yeah.
And he was reacting to what he felt was a palpable sense of tension in the room that people wanted it to go longer.
But anyway, so it got to communion and to the old Eucharist, and up people were going, and obviously like. You know, the head and the deputy head first, and they're like
Christ actually never said that they should go first.
No, they did.
Blessed are the meek.
They did themselves.
Cool.
And you know, they go out, they take the wafer, and
did they put their tongues out and have it on their tongues?
I don't know. I couldn't see. I was right at the back intentionally. But the thing that was funny was that then like basically everyone started standing up and getting in line and doing the sort of like crossed arms for a blessing, and. The priest was obviously too preoccupied giving the first sort of like communion wafers in, and hadn't seen that this was happening. And
it's the body of Christ at that point. Just to clarify, like I know we've got a big Catholic position.
He was giving out the flesh and the blood, and putting it into people's mouths. And he just sort of like looked up for a second and looked down, and then basically like he looked so angry, but he basically shouted like. Oh, there's no blessings. This is just communion.
Why not?
And basically everyone
Sat back
had to sit down. There were like 5 more people
what do you
who
mean
went
there's
out
no blessings? It's church. It's
all
blessings.
I've run out.
That's madness. He's doing microtransactions.
It's a premium service we haven't subscribed
That's really bad,
to.
I think.
It's very funny.
Was it because there's just an inordinate number of people?
Quite possibly.
But what if they all wanted host? That would take even longer.
God's love.
That's terribly bad. I've spent a long time in church and I've never seen anything like that happen. So
I've never seen anything like it.
Complaints to the diocese. Now, speaking of making complaints, this is a chapter about which I have none.
Oh,
it's
wow.
the best chapter of the book so far.
Really?
Hang on a minute. Plot after plot.
Hang on a minute.
Plot.
What is it? Is it just? It's like 4 pages long or something stupid?
No, it's about average. It's about average length.
Okay.
But the thing that this one does that I've started to realise that the book hadn't done so far is that it tells a story.
Wow.
And for me, I've come to realise only by virtue of having sat through, what is this, like 6 chapters now, prior to this, where honestly nothing's happened at all.
No, nothing.
Worth writing about, worth reporting in a fiction or indeed a non-fiction text. Like if this was your autobiography and these things really had happened, you'd want to edit those bits out because they've all been dull.
They've all been dull or
problematic.
Or crimes.
Yeah.
So just to do a quick recap, as we probably should, last week, very problematic chapter.
Yeah.
It was basically one invasion of privacy after another, culminating in a bigoted attack.
Yeah, it was like a house of cards made up of all these different violations upon which sat the ruins of
crown.
his transphobia.
Yeah, so basically Wade, he turned up to where Lohengrin, is it?
The Oza Zero.
The Oza Zero there. And she does a podcast that's called like The Lowdown or something.
Only the first Oza Zero.
Only the first, yeah.
It would have been a lesser YouTuber who would have made both of the O's Zero, like the Owen Down.
Is it really called The Lowdown?
Yeah, I believe you're definitely right. It's called, if it's not called The Lowdown, it's called something that's
like
essentially
that.
the same.
Yeah.
I think it is The Lowdown.
Maybe, sure. But
here's how to check. Is it the first thing you thought of?
It was the first thing I thought of.
It will be that, yeah. Ernest doesn't do 2 thoughts. Is that one of those?
No,
like Clint Eastwood. He only does one take.
He doesn't even do concurrent thoughts. So he turns up and Lohengrin is there.
Yeah,
and he thinks
in a recreation of a club from some movie.
Hackers. Oh no! So before that, it's it's in the room. It's in a room, not a real room. It's like a cyber room.
Yeah.
Wade, important to remember, he's wearing the robes of Anorak.
Now, these are going to be important later. They're actually, I just want to say, with disappointment in my heart, not mentioned in this whole chapter.
There's
no robes.
How is that?
It's robeless.
So you're saying that he ditched the robes and picked up the story?
I think he's still got them in the back pocket.
Okay, cool.
Metaphorically, like that's the great thing about robes. You don't have to talk about them every chapter.
No.
It's just that Ernest has chosen.
They are there
so far.
So, using the super user abilities granted him by the robes of Anorak, he could see that Lohengrin, she was sort of having what might look like a seizure. She was just sort of flitting back and forth, but that meant that she was absent from her. Not even her real body, her fake body. Yeah, and she was elsewhere. In a separate place.
Yeah, a private chat.
A private chat. Yeah. Well, not private really. Not private to Wade.
Functionally not private.
Yeah.
But really by design and intention, you could tell that they didn't want to just have this.
She thought it was private.
Yeah.
All the people inside thought it was private, but Wade, he had other ideas. He goes in, he starts listening, and basically he's
creeping.
He was creeping, he was jacking it. He was listening in because he said... well, I'm not going to give away all this money, like $1 billion, or whatever the fuck it is. It is literally $1 billion, isn't it?
Again, like if that's the first amount that a child would have thought of. Hey, how much should we give for the $1 billion? $1 billion.
Cool.
Right
if he's just going to give $1 billion away, he needs to know that it's legit.
You've got to
but then he did also say after that was a lie. I just wanted to listen.
Complex character.
And it turns out Lohengrin was really nice. Yeah. She was going to buy a big house, and she was going to force all of her friends to die in it.
She was going to start a hype house to the grave.
It was basically a sort of like Manson house.
It was a suicide pact, but elongated.
And so Wade was like, "Oh fuck, oh no!" And then he was like, "That's really bad. I shouldn't have done that."
Yeah.
What I'll do is
in for a penny.
What I'll do is I'll just look into all their backgrounds. And then so he looked into all their private backgrounds, and then he was like, no, that's wrong. So he stepped out of the private chat.
Yeah.
And then while the thing is like he thought she was on her way out as well. He thought it was one of those things where you're both at the door, and it's like, are you come? And she's like, yeah, I'll just be there and just get my coat.
Yeah.
But it turns out she was in there for at least another 30 seconds. So he had to fill the time, and what he did was he filled the time by looking at the cameras we found were mounted on all the headsets, and just perving on her.
Just checking out her real self.
And then perving on the real self, but then also perving on the birth certificates and school records. Found out that Lohengrin is a trans woman.
Yeah.
And, but then he
would fuck her.
And this is really important because he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And what I thought was really good was that he made that explicitly clear as the first thing possible.
Yeah, you've got to really focus on the important question when you find out someone else's gender is would I fuck them?
Yeah.
Like that's the main question.
And it turned out he'd been having straight, gay, and non-binary sex.
The 3 sexes. The holy trinity of fuck.
Of doing it. And he'd been doing all of this in the Oni, and he hadn't been disgusted by any of it. So
I mean, probably not super. Yeah,
he wasn't. He didn't say he was really into it.
No. But he's definitely tolerant.
And the good thing is the way that you know that you consider other people to be human is by thinking of them solely as an object of sexual desire and function. So it was all good. There were no problems, I don't think.
I don't think so. And we read an article that backed up
that said
there's no problems.
And we played a game by the person quoted in the article.
Oh, guys, yes. Please, if you have a couple... How long did we play it for? An hour?
It was about
90 minutes.
2 hours.
Yeah, it was so good. We played through. So Kate Barrett, I think, was her name. We talked about... read an interview with her on the topic of the transphobia in Ready Player 2, and it led me down a very small and satisfying rabbit hole to find that she'd made a game called Ready Player Fuck, which is just perfect. It's just
one of the greatest things
perfect
I've ever
parody
played.
of Ready Player 1 and Ready Player 2 as well. And like, as someone Longy fan in our chat over at twitch.tv/shamecity, which you'll be able to find the archive of it, maybe I'll put it on YouTube as well, said the thing that was so good about the game is it actually did what Ernest wants to do, which is by virtue of using just every reference they could think of, it was actually very funny and good, because you'd be like walking down the Star Wars hall and then Homer Simpson flies over. You're like, wow, it's a
Homer
500-foot Homer Simpson shooting lasers. Because she just used all the free models she could find on some website. Probably very illegal, but obviously a beautiful and genius work that I would recommend anyone go and play.
It was really, really good.
Google it, it's excellent.
And then what I think is probably important to remember, maybe because like a lot of the other chapters, maybe we're picking up exactly where we left off.
Yeah, that's usually the case.
Yeah, so what he did was, I remember this very explicitly, despite not having listened back, is that
I just
Lohengrin was back in the room.
Whoa.
And she was going to be heading for the door.
Yeah.
And so Wade, he was wearing the robes of Anorak, and
What
one
do
of
they have?
one of the super user abilities that they granted him was invisibility.
Yeah.
So he was invisible, and he
The
went and
pervert's
he
gambit.
stood in like the path between her and the door.
Yeah.
He assumed an intimidating
Ominous, I think it was.
ominous wizard's pose. That was it, an ominous wizard's
Fucking
pose.
Just picture that for a second. That is a sentence that, like, you would sometimes when I'm writing things, be they, you know, text or songs, if I have an idea and it's a like this but not this, I use square brackets to be like, come back and change this.
Yeah.
So if you were writing that and I think this is a completely valid way of approaching it, you were like, okay, and then Wade stood there and he assumed square brackets, ominous wizard. But I'll change it. I'll change it. No, don't fucking
There were no
worry.
changes.
Because the thing about ominous wizard's pose is it means nothing. Like, a wizard is not known for an ominous pose in particular.
It's really interesting because I think he's accidentally stumbled on an accurate descriptive phrase, because it doesn't mean anything, but it is the stupidest. But I do kind of know exactly what. Yeah. I only know that because I know how stupid the rest of everything that has been written is.
Yeah.
So he did that, and then he made himself visible again,
and then
to scare the shit out of this person whose privacy he completely invaded.
Well, you've got to make them afraid. That's one of Wade's big things.
Yeah.
So we pick up, as you say, immediately, straight after, with Lohengrin freezing.
The first sentence should have been, as I stood in my ominous wizard's pose.
Lohengrin screamed, an ominous wizard! What a pose! Lohengrin froze, and when her eyes locked onto me, they seemed to double in size. Straight away, a great image. Just immediately.
Like a cartoon wolf who's really horny. It's a bawooga!
Then, now, this is starting a new theme, because things that we know about Lohengrin so far, she's obviously a very skillful and charismatic gunter to have created such a big YouTube channel. And also, because I don't think this was ever in doubt, she's not joking, she has found.
She's found.
So she's clearly smart, she gets all the references, like, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
But something we didn't know about Lohengrin is she's a simp for Wade. She's a Wade simp. We knew this slightly because she named herself after his avatar's some sort of fucking Arthur shit.
Yeah.
Another Grail Knight, maybe, I forget already.
Something like that.
But here's her normal reaction to Wade appearing as an ominous wizard's pose. Then she bowed her head and slammed her right fist against her heart as she dropped to one knee. My liege, she said in a shaky voice, keeping her eyes on the floor. Ernest just
he
furiously
is absolutely
say Lees,
slamming
say Lees
on.
again. I'm Lohengrin, your humble servant, and a huge fan, sir. Truly. Please rise, Lohengrin, I said.
This is awful.
I'm a big fan of yours too.
This is like this is just one of those like those like what is it, creepy asterisks conversations
yeah.
made whole.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, glances lasciviously at you.
Yeah.
Begins
Licked
to drool.
lips.
Yeah.
It's like fanfic of a scene that hasn't yet happened. It's like pre-cog fanfic.
He's getting the work out the way for him.
Just don't bother. You can't make this cringy. She stands up and she's like, Sir Parzival, shaking her head in wonder. It's really you. And the thing about Wade is he's a cool character, and he's not fazed by this.
He doesn't strike up an ominous wizard's pose again.
Not
does he?
again. He's done that one.
Okay, yeah.
But he just takes it in his stride. It's really me, I replied. It's an honour to meet you, Lohengrin. It's got a big
he's
like,
doing that.
No, you're the real
You're
heroes.
heroes, yeah.
Like energy to it. The honour is all mine, and please call me Lo. All my friends do.
The O is a 0.
I should specify. You can stop the pose whenever you like. He's like, my friends call me Z. It's very cool. Like, we've established.
He's like, my friends call me Z.
Yeah, I didn't know. I haven't seen that happen.
cool,
I think
good.
H is the only one that calls him Z, and I think
And
once so far.
you get that because they're both just letters.
Yeah. So she reveals the depth of her simpery, saying that she's read every single one of the books written about him over the past few years, including your autobiography, never mentioned previously, which I've read at least 24 times.
Well, that was obviously written by one of the bots.
Yeah.
That was written by
Written by
Max
Max
Hardcore, whatever the
Headroom.
fuck his name is.
24
Hardcore
times
is
is
a
a
porn
lot to read a book.
That's a lot of time to dedicate. I don't know how you would do that and
He's also quite a young man.
And do a
like,
podcast.
He hasn't done that much stuff.
What she means is she read Ready Player One
24 times. And who of us hasn't?
Yeah. Do you think that Ernest invented Lohengrin because no such woman has presented themselves to him personally
As having read Ready Player One?
Ready Player One, yeah.
Sad thing is, I think probably people have. I think Ernest is...
No, but not the sort that he'd want.
Yeah, not
Because what he
quite.
wants is...
Not
Because
quite.
he's a nerd porn auteur.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So I know pretty much everything there is to know about you. Everything that's ever been made public, anyway. I'm kind of obsessed with you.
It's funny, he said, because I know things about you that...
I don't limit myself to the public sphere, Lohengrin.
I know.
I winked ominously.
striking a
These
pose.
robes? Why? Thanks for noticing. They grant me what
The
I call
documents
super
I've perused
user
in
abilities.
these. Goodness me.
If I had a dime for every
The
lawsuit.
camera that I've...
She does that cool thing of, you know, like one of the things whenever you're auditioning someone or wherever you're watching like student films or like a fringe play, how people handle dialogue that interrupts, I think, is a very, very telling indicator of whether they understand the
Where
cadence
people
of real speech.
raise and then
Yeah.
do a big like...
What do you mean you've got... I don't know what you're saying. Like this painful pause. He just does, like, there's something very false about, I'm kind of obsessed with you. That's the end of the thought. And
Yeah.
then he does the dash, end
Yeah.
of speech. She suddenly
It's
cut
got to
herself
cut
off.
into something.
Yeah.
Like, it can't be... It's just not just instead of a
I think
sentence.
if he'd done, I'm kind of obsessed with, and then cut it there, he would
We
have thought,
pro-
well, the reader won't get what she's obsessed
Yeah,
with.
maybe not.
Could be anything.
She's on her knees, like, chair, fist on heart.
Doing a Silas from the Da Vinci Code. She winces in embarrassment, as I think you should in these circumstances, and then pounds her right fist against her forehead several times.
Right.
She's always like punching herself with her fist.
What
as
is
a
she
theme so
doing?
far.
What's this about?
It's just like, oh, silly me. I'm a real person
That's
acting
not how
in a normal way.
That's not how I describe that. She's like
punches
she's just
herself in the
slamming
head.
herself.
Her cheeks had turned a bright shade of red, an indication she hadn't shut off our avatar's blush response that we set up before.
That's so funny because what I like there is that he said her cheeks went red. Then he remembered that they're not actually in the physical realm, but then he realized he still
He'd set
wanted
the
that.
solo seed.
Yeah, he'd written that sentence. The backspace key is broken.
Yeah.
We'll just pop in the little blush function.
She
sure.
probably hadn't switched off any of her avatar's other involuntary emotional
Oh,
responses
stop
either.
it! Will you?
Younger only users did this intentionally. They referred to it as rolling reel, which is pretty fucking cool.
God.
That's pretty cool. Would you roll reel?
I would not.
Well,
No.
actually, I would, but it would be indistinguishable from people
Yeah.
who weren't.
People are like, oh, Isaac, you've got your things turned off.
You're not rolling
No.
real. No,
No.
I super am. This is just the way I am.
Using the Robes of Anorak, so I sort of like dived in and looked at all of the different involuntary bodily responses she was having.
The blood dopamine levels, and saw that she was into me. He now sympathises. He's like, oh, poor Lo. Her nervousness at meeting an idol reminded me too much of myself for comfort. And he pivots the conversation in a very gentlemanly way.
When I met Halliday, I too was punching myself silly.
And so he pivots the conversation to be like, look, what's the vibe? Like, what have you found? And
What's the vibe?
she's like, okay, I'm going to show you, but first I need to show you how I found it. And because that's the question that's been on our lips as well. I think probably the only
I am
fun bit-
actually
Yeah,
interested
exactly.
to know why,
Same.
like how she found this.
Same.
Oh, what I'd have said first is before I do that, I want at least 500 mil.
She's thinking. She's thinking.
Yes.
Listen, Mr. Watts, she said, keeping her eyes on the floor. I don't mean any disrespect, but would you mind verbally confirming that the reward is still $1 billion US? Not at all, I said. If anything you tell me helps me locate one of the 7 shards of the Siren Soul, a phrase I'll never tire of saying,
No.
then I will immediately transfer $1 billion. It just sounds so like
It's so
copy
bullshit.
pasta,
It is
doesn't
just little
And
child.
everybody
It is
clapped.
a little kid.
$1 billion
writing it.
to your ACES account. It's all outlined in the contract you signed when you sent me your clue. Do you remember the contract?
No.
It wasn't mentioned.
What she sent was an email.
Yeah.
She sent an email.
Before anyone could try to claim the reward, they were required to sign a digital shard clue submission contract that my lawyers
So-
had drafted.
Things don't have to have names. You can just say contract.
I was actually-
meant the same thing.
I was actually surprised that he didn't do brackets SCSC afterwards.
Or
SC squared or something.
7 shards of the Siren Soul. Shard
clue
contract.
submission contract. I looked-
SSOSSSCSC.
as the younger gunts were calling it.
They were calling it
Gas. Daroni. I located the copy Lohengrin had signed and displayed it in a window in front of her. The print was too fine to read without squinting, and the text scrolled on for several pages.
without squinting. Not zoom. No,
Yeah,
no
they don't
zoom
have
function in the
no
OD.
zoom in the
You
OD.
just got to squint really
You've
fucking
got to pay
hard.
many
Zoom
dollars.
token.
Basically, the contract is like, yeah, if you tell me anything that's useful, I'll pay you. Also, you can't mention it to anyone ever. Like, it's a huge NDA.
Hang on a minute though. Is he going to say that she broke the NDA by telling the people in the fucking
I don't know.
chat
That
room?
doesn't happen here yet.
He's definitely going to be such a dick.
That
about
would
it.
be very fucking funny if he does do some like, oh, actually, I posted on
Proper
our legal
Wonka.
advice.
You stole fizzy lifting drinks.
Good day. That'd be so good. I really hope that does happen. And I mean, it would be in keeping with his ruthless and amoral character, because he operates outside the law for the most part. It would be
Yeah,
perfectly
entirely.
appropriate. So she, the details of the NDA definitely did set up like alarm bells for me. I was like, seems a bit much. She seems satisfied by this though. She reads the contract. She's like, I read it thousands of times just to be sure about it. And then she's like, okay, let's go. And he says, the look of nervous anticipation on her face set my own heart racing. If this kid was lying about finding one of the shards, then she deserved an Academy Award for her performance.
Does Wade roll real?
Don't think so. Because remember, there was something that happened in like one of the co-owners meeting where his emotions got wounded and he didn't display them.
Wow, okay,
because he
that's
don't
good.
roll real. He rolls false. Lo began to
that he
flip.
do.
So they walk over to the the place where they're going. Kira's like hideout
Yeah.
as it is, and Lo begins to flip through the huge collection of old Dungeons and Dragons modules shelved there, apparently looking for one in particular. I'd browsed through that very same bookshelf 7 years ago, he reminds us, just so we know he's also a gamer.
No. Well, he doesn't want us to think he was a div. Although I do seem to remember that he said that he thought it was too obvious.
Yeah, he did.
But he did come anyway.
Yeah, he came anyway. Also, my mistake. This is not Kira's hideout. This is like Og's special basement that they're looking at the moment. And anyway, so he looked through there many years ago, and
Right.
he's read or skimmed through all the old magazines, or so he thought, but not necessarily exactly all of them. Now I was
hang on a
kicking
minute.
myself, wondering what I'd missed. For the past few years, Lohengrin says, I've been scouring Middletown looking for a way to alter the time period of the simulation. You know, because of the couplet. The couplet? She paused in her search and turned around to look at me. On Kira's headstone. Oh, right, I said. Of course. I had no idea what she was talking about. We didn't either, reader.
We had no idea.
And Lohengrin could obviously see it on my face. Her eyes widened in surprise. Oh my god, you don't even know about the couplet, do you?
That's so good. That's
pretty cool.
based. That's
pretty cool.
based of Low.
So the couplet, it turns out, it's very cool, first of all, and it's an interesting. I want to analyze it on two fronts. First of all, like in universe, and then out of universe. Out of universe, I think a cynic might say that this is what you would refer to as like an untelegraphed twist, because it's a bit of information that we had no way of
Right.
guessing ourselves. I was doing a lot of research into like how riddles are structured in murder mysteries and things.
Yeah.
And the primary source of like an unsatisfying riddle, obviously, is if at the end you're like, oh, it was this character you never heard of or
Yeah,
met
yeah.
and had no way of knowing. Even if you can't
Or,
reasonably...
or if it's someone that you have seen, but for reasons that are entirely like enshrouded. to you.
completely concealed from
Yeah.
you. So, I mean, you could say that he's done that there because, like, part of the fun of this book should surely be trying to work out, oh, how will you get the riddles?
So I sort of don't care because there's no way that we could, because he makes
Yeah,
this
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
up
yeah.
on the spot anyway. Like even the things that are telegraphed are completely untelegraphed, really, because we
have to be
don't
Wade.
know anything about it until Wade tells us.
It's true. It's just a shame, I think, from the perspective of, like...
I think it possibly just feels this way because it's the first thing that Wade hasn't known.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that's why it feels so weird.
Because I really identify with Wade. That felt like a gut punch to me.
Weirdly, I think this makes it better because it's like
I do like that
it's
he's
quite nice
not
that
in the
he's
position of being able to go, oh, of course I knew that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I invented it. In universe, then, Wade is... sort of thinks to herself, she frowns at me and shook her head as if to say, how far the mighty have fallen. Here's how it works, though. It's a very cool couplet, and I want you to really get on board with it. You know how in Peter Jackson's film adaptation of The Two Towers, there's a scene where King Theoden places a symbol mine, is how I'm going to say it, it's a type of flower, on Theodred's tomb, she asked. You remember that one?
Yeah,
I nodded. I nodded. Well, if you visit the recreation of Kira's grave on E-Earth, that's Ursat's Earth, and place a symbol mine taken from Arda on it, which is like the heaven, I think, in Middle-earth, a rhymed couplet appears on her headstone, Lowe said. Other types of flowers indigenous to Middle-earth might work. I haven't tested all of them.
That's good. She's leaving the possibilities open.
I felt like a complete idiot.
Yeah, you are.
I'd visited Kira's grave
Wait,
on E-Earth several times.
I'm pretty sure that we suggested you do that back in a previous ep.
At least I could hide my embarrassment, since I wasn't rolling real, answering our previous question.
Cool.
She pulls up a screenshot of this process.
But hang on a minute. A minute ago, she could tell that he...
Yeah, no, it doesn't worry. Don't worry about.
Oh,
things
okay,
like
cool,
that.
cool.
Don't worry about anything.
Don't.
If there's inconsistency, it's your fault.
It's my... Sorry. That is my bad. Sorry, listeners.
blame the
Sorry,
reader.
listeners.
She pulls up a screenshot of Kira's headstone on E-Earth, and having like added the flower or whatever, we get a couplet. Now, I know you love all the riddle sections. You're a big Dan Brown fan.
I
You've been
love
rewatching a
and
lot
I
of
love
those.
poetry.
Yeah,
the
so
shorter the better.
You're gonna love this. The first shard lies in the siren's first den. So the question isn't where, but when. Now, it didn't
right,
scan
yeah.
amazingly, so why I added
No,
that
it
big
doesn't.
pause.
Yeah.
The
that was
first
good.
shard lies in the siren's first den. So the question isn't where,
It's
but when. And there it was, after all these years, a genuine clue. And it seems that Lohengrin is the first person to find this. Like, no one has mentioned that there is this clue out there. And so, clearly, the problem, as the couplet suggests, is not the location, but the time.
It is. It's not where. I think the line was.
But when.
It's but when.
It isn't where, but when. The time period of this simulation is always set in 1986. And Kira lived in Middletown from the fall of 1988 to the summer of 1989. So I think you're a great riddler as well. I think what you'd realise is we need to somehow change the simulation
move it
to the time she was
She
there.
was there. Yeah.
She's tried that though. She holds up an object that resembled an oversized pocket watch, a rare time travel device called an Omni, but no dice. Time machines don't function.
Sorry.
here.
Called a what?
An Omni. Like omnibenevolent,
Right.
omnivore. I don't quite know why it's
And
called
what-
that.
What's the? It's the Oni.
Yeah.
Everything's too.
Only with an M is this.
Yeah.
The Omni.
Yeah.
This was something I already knew firsthand. I brought my own time machine, Ecto 88, to Middletown to try the same thing. I'd upgraded the car with a fully functional and extremely expensive flux capacitor, which allowed me to time travel on planets where doing so was an option.
Wait,
I
but hang
included
on. Wait. So he did this anyway.
He
He
No,
didn't
he
know.
knows about
He
time
didn't have the
travel.
clue, but he did bring his car here to do it anyway.
I think he did actually. Oh yeah, he did. I just said that he did. So
Right.
he tried the time travel, just why not, I guess.
Yeah.
Just on a hunch, but it didn't work. I like the sentence as well as the references Ecto 88 and Flux Capacitor, which I know we all enjoyed.
Hugely.
I liked the sort of disingenuous fence sitting of allowing me to time travel on planets where doing so was an option.
yeah.
It's like I won't be pinned down once again
On- yeah,
to the
as to
specifics.
whether I can or cannot time
When I
travel
need
in
to, I
planets.
can. When I don't, I cannot. But yeah, his flux capacitor didn't work on Middletown, so he's like, what the fuck? Gave up on that as an option.
Yeah.
Kira knows that the couplet implies that changing the time frame has to be part of the solution, and so she perseveres. And
Do
what
you mean low?
Yeah, my
Yeah,
bad.
cool.
Low. What she does was she explores the room and she finds something that no one else had seen in the room before.
It was the shard.
It was the seventh shard.
Huge.
This bloody great big shard. No, what she finds was a shrink-wrapped wall calendar for the year 1989. It was just on a shelf. Now, you may be wondering, surely someone would have checked for that before. And Wade thinks the same thing. He was like, hang about, that wasn't there when I looked. And Gunter's, indeed, he confirms, have spent years studying the contents of this very room. Why didn't any of them find it? Because it wasn't here, Lowe said, grinning wide. I checked, and this is a new thing for us to know about, I checked Gunterpedia.
Oh.
Perhaps that would be your
Oh,
homepage.
I don't want that to be a word.
There's
Can we have that removed?
We can't, no. It's
Can we
we're going to use it
if we
frequently
ask,
from here on out.
if we write to Ernest, we
Not
say
a
we'll be
chance.
much nicer going forward, but he has to retcon it out.
There's an itemised list of every single object in the basement. The only calendar listed on it is the one hanging on the wall. And she holds up a 1989 calendar, which, by the way, has some cool art of a bikini-clad female warrior astride a black steed brandishing a magic ring.
That's hot.
It's really cool.
That's hot.
And so basically what it means is that the calendar only appeared after Halliday's puzzle had finished, after the contest that Wade won finished, then materialised this calendar.
So wait, so why were people categorising it?
People were
all
categorising it previously
beforehand?
as part of the Ready Player One gunting.
Right.
Because they thought that Ogg's hideout... In fact, it may well have been a part of that puzzle, I don't recall.
And no one, and after the second riddle came out, no one has had a look.
Well, they
since.
probably checked Gunterpedia.
They just
and
were
like,
checking
nothing else
Gunterpedia.
is, yeah, like you can't be making
This is the problem when you don't do your own original research.
Well, think how expensive it is for everyone without the
That
roads
is
of
true,
Amaranth
yeah.
to travel, because they've only got regular user
No, but Wade
abilities.
made it free for everyone to.
He made it more expensive.
Oh,
than
right,
ever.
that's it. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
So what happens is you swap the 1989 calendar with the one on the wall, and this for the first time is possible. Previously, you can't like change things in the simulation, or everyone would just fuck it up. They would grief it, as Ernest might say. But now you can swap them around, and when you do, it's pretty gamer. The day-night cycle whizzes through, and the pages of the calendar, in a very cinematic way, they flip.
Almost like it was being made into a film.
Almost like he's planning that already.
Yeah.
They flip like time-lapse footage played back at high speed is his description. And when the strobing stops, the surroundings have changed. The couches in Ogg's basement had rearranged themselves and 2 more bookshelves had appeared against the far wall.
What?
Whoa, I heard myself whisper. I glanced at the digital alarm clock sitting on top of one of the bookshelves. Its glowing blue display said the local time was now 1:07 a.m. That's the night. That's the morning night.
Fuck.
For the first time, they're seeing Middletown, this simulation that's existed since the development of the Oasis in night. And for a gunter like I know you are, you must be hard as a mast right now.
What the fuck? Let me tell you, if I was
Positively
rolling real, I'd have to sit down.
She was beaming with pride. Swapping the calendars changes the time period of the Middletown simulation from October 1986 to April 1989, she explains. Just in
night.
case we didn't get that.
Yeah.
If this is April 1989, I said, then what happens if we go over to the Barnett's empty guest bedroom now? Lowe grinned. Before we head over there, you need to obtain an item located in this room. An audio cassette tape that Kira gifted to both Halliday and Ogg. So,
When she was she two-timing them?
No, she wasn't.
Okay,
she was
good.
platonic friends with both of them, as far as we know at the time. But
She
they
was
clearly
fucking
had...
Ogg.
Well, she eventually was going to
She
fuck
was
Ogg. I don't know if
fucking
she was
Ogg.
at this
She
point.
was, yeah.
So just to make this really clear, there are 2 places in Middletown, which is the town where they all grew up. Or, well, Ogg and Halliday grew up there. Kira was just there on some exchange program for about as long as the plot requires.
That's
about
good, yeah.
9 months or something. One fateful
yeah.
summer where they became best friends for life. And so at the moment we're in Og's house in his basement, and we're going because the shard is going to be in Kira's, the bedroom she stayed in for one summer, 1 year. And they need the item to like unlock the powerful bedroom. The item is, and this is cool, it's a mixtape called Lucosia's Mix. Oscar Miller mentions it in his memoir. I didn't know who Oscar Miller was, so I googled it, and there's nothing about it on Google.
Good.
I've intuited that he was just someone that they all knew.
Right, okay.
Who wrote a memoir called The Middletown Adventurers Guild. He wrote about it in that memoir, but he doesn't give the full track list. He just mentions one song that was on it. There Is a Light That Never Goes Out by The Smiths. Lowe nodded. That's exactly right. There are 2 copies of Lucosia's mix in the Middletown simulation. One in Halliday's Walkman in his bedroom and one here. The other one is in Og's boombox. Just very cool flavour.
Og's boombox,
very
yeah,
cool
Walkman,
flavour.
yeah.
They eject the tape, and it says that according to Miller's book, Kira made 2 copies of this mixtape, she repeats, holding it up. She gave one to Og and one to Halliday a few months before her school year abroad ended, and she had to go back home to London. Big up. Big up the ends.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know we were going to be featured.
We're going to feature so heavily.
So they have to take this version of Lucosia's Mix.
We're going to have to, because there's going to have to be some Doctor Who, isn't there? Because she loved Doctor Who.
Well, possibly, but not now. I'm sorry.
But what I mean is, at some point, they're going to have to come to London.
Fuck, that would be cool.
Because there's going to have to be some Doctor Who, isn't there? No, it would be bad.
So they take the mix and then they sprint off up to Kira's old bedroom.
Well, he could just travel them there.
You've got to sprint because it's an action bit.
Right, I see, yeah.
They're running. Then she pointed up as they arrived to Kira's bedroom window on the 2nd floor. It was the only room in the house with a light on. In fact, glancing up and down the street, I saw that it was the only illuminated window on the entire block. Lohengrin saw me noticing this and nodded her approval, but she didn't say anything. I thought for a moment, then took a copy of Lucosia's Mix out of my inventory and examined the track list. There it was, the 7th song on side A. 7th. There Is a Light That Never Goes Out by The Smiths, one of Kira's all-time favourites.
Wow, that's
this
good.
Must be for you hearing this now. Like the end of The Usual Suspects, when the mug
the
cracks.
Kobayashi mug,
yeah, and you're like,
tumbling,
everything's coming into place.
Everything's coming together. All these things I knew beforehand, like the fact that it was 1989, like the fact that she loved There Is a Light That Never Goes Out by The
symbol main on the
Smiths.
Theodred's Kira grave in Ursat's Earth.
Yeah, why? I was thinking about that just the other day.
I've been pondering those for so long, and it's so great the feeling to have them all slot into place.
Yeah.
They go up to the bedroom where posters adorn the walls. The Dark Crystal, The Last Unicorn, Purple Rain, The Smiths, all the cool posters. Sheets of graph paper were tacked up everywhere. I'd read about this. Kira had spent hundreds of hours copying pixels from the screen onto the graph paper, colouring them in hand by hand, 1 square at a time. Og was fond of saying that his wife had, quote, always had a knack for bringing pixels to life. This is prefiguring her artistry when she went on to create lots of the art in the Oasis.
She went to go and do that, yeah.
Basically, what they're going to do is put this tape into a machine.
Have they just got the one?
There are 2 tapes in the simulation, but they only need the one.
I know that more than I need.
I don't know
to.
if I mentioned this. One in the Walkman, Halliday's
one in the box, comma boom.
There's one in the Og's boombox. There are no family photos on the wall, but she did have several pictures taped around the edge of her mirror showing Kira with her nerdy circle of friends, Halliday, Og, the others, the other misfit members of
Oliver,
the
whatever his
Middletown
name was.
Adventurers Guild. Yeah. Several of those boys would later write tell-all books about growing up with Halliday and Og, and like every other die-hard Gunter, I'd scoured them all for details that might help me unlock the puzzles and riddles Halliday left behind. It transpires that none of them ever actually saw what her bedroom looked like, so that this is probably a speculative design that they've come up with, because she was never allowed to have male visitors up there. None of the boys in the guild had ever seen Kira's room, including Og and Halliday, but I would have been willing to bet they both spent plenty of time imagining what it looked like. They said of a child's bedroom.
Yeah.
Maybe that was what I was looking at now.
One perv said of some others.
A simulation of what Halliday imagined Kira's room looked like back then. So they just gave her like the Smiths posters, all of these things. There's a brief tangent to mention some cool hardware, which is the Dragon 64. You'll know, but forgive me for re-explaining.
Please.
A British PC built with the same hardware as the TRS-80 Colour Computer 2, the first computer Halliday ever owned.
Yeah.
According to one of the old journal
And he felt the
entries-
need to explain that.
Well, yeah, because in Anorak's Almanac, when he found out that he and Kira owned compatible computers, he took it as a sign that they were meant to be together. He was wrong, of course.
You and I own compatible computers.
Did you take that as a sign?
Are we supposed to?
I think
my
it must
God.
be. She's got a big dot matrix printer, which is cool and fun. Blah, blah, blah. they put the tape in, and they fast forward to the end of the 6th song, which you've got to know is Jessie's Girl by Rick Springfield.
Sure.
And then Morrissey begins to croon. Take me out tonight. I glanced around the room, nothing happened. I glanced over at Lohengrin. I imagine that his finger is like poised over some like delete account button. Yeah. She held up a hand and mouthed the word.
He's now invisible, drawing a huge sword.
Anorak's lightsaber. She held up a hand and mouthed the word wait. So we waited. We waited until about 3 minutes into the song, when Morrissey starts to sing a riff on the title over and over again.
Yep.
There is a light and it never goes out. As he sang light for the first time, pew, the lid of a wooden jewellery box sitting next to the stereo flew open, and a necklace floated up out of it, as if lifted by an invisible hand. It was silver with a blue gemstone, and I recognised it as the one Kira was wearing in her 1989 Middletown High School yearbook photo. According to his autobiography, Og gave it to her the first time he told her he was in love with her.
Wow.
When the Smiths song ended, there was a blinding flash of light. When it faded, the floating necklace...
It went out?
There
Incredible.
is a light and it just
might
went
go
out. When it faded, the floating necklace had transformed into a large blue teardrop-shaped crystal spinning in front of us.
Sort of a shard
there
of
it
sorts.
was at long last, one of the 7 shards of the Siren's soul.
Wow.
End of chapter.
Goodness
A
me.
thrilling chase through time itself. And we land now with what I can describe as 1/7 of the plot having been completed.
Having been resolved.
Doesn't bode well that it took 7 chapters to get there.
No, what?
But
How many chapters did it take?
Don't get too excited, because by his numbering scheme, this is chapter 0006.
And we did 3 at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not good. It's not exciting
sorry,
or clever.
it's not.
So in fact, actually, this is chapter 8 that we just did by our naming convention.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 6, according to him, because he can't count.
So if we take an average...
You're fucking right. Just another 42 to go until we get all the rest of them. Here's hoping.
And then probably another 7 to sort out the finale.
Yeah. Now, before we dive into some real world writing advice to cap off this episode, I wondered how you felt in that chapter. Because for me, when I was reading it, I felt an excitement. I felt a focus that had been previously really lacking quite noticeably from the text. Now we're in like the fun part, right? We're in the kind of froth. This is the adventure. This is the riddle. This is the couplet. This is how you solve it. You're like, oh fuck yes. Does it fill you with hope that we're going to continue at this kind of breakneck pace? Maybe Lohengrin now enlisted on a kind of road trip adventure throughout the Oasis galaxy, finding shards, finding
on a sort
siren
of
souls.
0 hours contract, helping to find.
NDA'd up to the teeth. Can't mention it to another living soul, or you're instantly killed with the super user abilities wiped from her house.
No, I can't say it gives me hope.
Oh, that's disappointing.
I suppose it gives us a glimmer.
Yeah.
Is what it does. It is in a way better.
Yeah.
It certainly is better than a lot of what we've had, because like you say, there is something resembling story there.
And it feels like he's suddenly found his footing, like in the story.
The issue, I think, is this thing that you brought up, right? And I know that I maintain that it's kind of interesting that the crux of this is something that Wade himself didn't know.
Yeah.
But then the issue is that if Klein's only means of telling us things is things Wade knows, which like isn't his own, like that's first person fiction largely. Yeah. But if everything is going to be puzzle based in that way, and we only discover information when it's new, then none of the puzzles could possibly have any like gratification in being solved. Like I was thinking about this because we've been playing lots of puzzle games, right? And all of the best ones that we've had have no hints as to like what you're supposed to be doing. It's just that like you have to explore and find and try things, and sometimes they work as long as they don't. Now obviously a book is not the same. It is like a narrated piece of fiction, but like lots of good mystery work is about this, like the very precise sowing of seeds, isn't it? For you to pick up in a way that you could have feasibly come to this conclusion. But
even
also,
if it's an illusory sense that you could have, because you never actually could be Poirot.
No.
You've got to feel when he says, aha, Hastings, it was him, that you're like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay, and I can see that. And the thing that the reference for that that the reasons for that conclusion are things that you were aware of.
Yeah.
Whereas like it's quite interesting that the crux of this was one thing that he didn't realize, and that gets explained to him. But then after that, everything else is again just like, oh, I sort of knew this, but no one knew that, and I sort of knew this, but no one knew that, and we did these 5 things, and then there it was.
It seems like either way that he goes now. Well, first, before I say this point, I just don't think there's time in the novel now. We're like 35% in. There's not time to satisfactorily like approach sowing more seeds and then, you know, having riddles that
Sowing
are
any
satisfying.
seeds,
Yeah. But either the format is going to be something like a hand wave. We spent the next year discovering 5 more, and then we just focused on the last 2 or something, which is kind of what I'm expecting to happen.
I assume so.
Or the whole structure is going to be split between ones that he knows everything about that we don't know, or she knows everything about that we don't know, and both of those are equally unsatisfying as a reader, because you're just like, well, it's just a list of stuff I didn't know. And in a book that is entirely premised on, it's got to be things I have heard of to enjoy.
That's the
This is
only
the, like,
selling point that it
antithesis, right?
has.
For it to be like a reference to something that you could never have known because I just made it up.
Yeah.
Like, what number am I thinking of? How many fingers am I holding up?
Hang on, was it 7?
I asked Lohengrin and she said it was 6, so I gave her another $1 billion. And anyway, we found them all now, and I'm double rich.
I have a feeling, because I think part of the problem here is that he's got a double-edged sword for himself, or something of a poison chalice that he poisoned himself line here, which is that it's shit if he just solves it.
Yeah.
Right. It's rubbish if he just knows and solves it again. But the alternative is that, which I think is the possibility, is that basically every one of his like friends who's ditched him is going to be crucial to getting
I
one
haven't
of them.
counted how many there
Right,
are, but
like
that could actually be
that's the only reason he's introduced a new character. There were only 6. Like the last one's going to be Artemis. Obviously, there's like H. There's the guy who's single-handedly repopulated Japan. Like, there's all of this. Right?
Maybe his baby will have grown up sufficiently.
There's all of these, like each of these people, something like that. But if that's the case, it's also shit, because then Wade is useless.
It's
He's
just
pointless.
like watching a montage of someone else's holiday photos at that point.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
and then we found the third
And then we
one.
found what the third.
Oh, remember the 4th one?
And
No.
and he's literally just like the guy funding it, funding this search.
Yeah.
It's
He has written himself into a corner, which is quite spectacularly achieved in a book that has done nothing so far.
Yeah.
Like, it's a shame to have written nothing that creates forward momentum, but also to have written yourself out of a good book
out of
at
being
this
able
point.
to.
Yeah.
He's like he's written himself into a stalemate situation. Like they're just like dancing around the board.
We don't know that's definitely the case, because we might have to eat our words if Ernest pulls this one out of the bag.
It could no.
If
and
he manages to
I'm-
make this into a fun, like I would at this point settle for. It's like we've been rewatching the Dan Brown movies recently,
Yeah.
and Dan Brown's obviously not one of the great writers of all time,
what-
but when he's at his best, it's just airplane fun reading, right?
Yes.
It's like, here's a puzzle. Dan Brown's puzzles usually, although preposterous in many ways, they at least have an element that you could be like, oh yeah, I see how that's solved. Like I see the logic from the statement of the puzzle to a clue that's calling back to something,
Yep.
to the resolution.
even though lots of the history is bullshit,
Yeah.
usually the bits that they use to solve the puzzle
Yeah.
are not.
and they're
so-
things
and
that you could
therefore
have Googled,
you-
right?
Yeah,
They're
it's
like real world things that we all know about.
And like sometimes they're shit, but at least they were puzzles. Like
Yeah.
the a knight, a pope interred, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's actually you meant a pope, Alexander Pope. The formatting, don't worry about
the
like,
weird
But like
syntax.
that is something that's just that happened,
Yeah.
right? So you can.
What I'm hoping is that it goes in that direction, because I think if it does, it could be an entertaining end to the novel. I'm hoping that he stays out of all discourse, really that Wade fades into the background as a character, becomes just a vehicle for narrating
Fado and Watts.
the finding of all of these things. But I don't hold out hope that he can avoid
No.
carrying on to centre Wade, the world's most boring character ever created, and ruining it. for
I think
himself.
that this is the big problem, and it's why I think this certainly in book form is just massively incompatible. Is that at least with say like the Dan Browns or with any kind of like good murder mystery or whodunit or something, there's a cap, isn't there, on what could possibly be being referenced?
Yeah.
That the the puzzle and therefore the clues are contained within a certain realm. Like
They have to be about Christ.
They have to be about Jesus, or they have
Or
to be in the
Italian
Vatican,
art.
or they
There has to be a Bernini sculpture of exactly the thing we're discussing.
and what do you know it? There's 4 of them. Like, but that's it. It's not like, and this I think was the big problem that we noticed when we watched Inferno, right? Is like suddenly it's like, oh, and now we're going to Turkey, and now we're going to here, and now we're going there, and it was all a lot of drivel. And it had to be because he'd had a stroke or something. Like he didn't know what the fuck was going on. Like you've got that kind of like the main character incapacitated thing. Whereas with Ready Player 1 and 2, his whole thing is like, well, it could be anything from these 2 decades. Anything from these 2 decades could be involved. Or maybe it's not.
Yeah.
And it could be the most famous thing you've ever heard of, or it could be this one game that I played on a console that doesn't exist apart from in this one town.
That I was very good at.
And let me tell you,
not even because of the super
and I knew all the code. I remembered the code in my head. Like,
I agree.
so not only does it seem bullshit when they figure it out in like the loosest possible terms, when they just suddenly know what to do.
Yeah.
But like it probably just leaves you feeling incredibly defeated because it's like, well, I could now write that chapter and it would make no difference to the novel if I made that discovery completely different. If I rewrote that chapter and instead she found it by just pulling the shard out of Wade's arse, right? If she just went, well,
while Morrison's playing,
she just goes, oh, what's that? Points up and then just like
lifts up the
shoves her arm up him. Parzival, he's not rolling real, so he's still like stony faced. Wade in his spider coffin is having an absolute fit, right? And she just pulls out and goes, it was here all along. And he would have to go, wow, it really was. Here's $1 billion. And then we put that in, and the next chapter, it would make no difference.
Yeah.
The novel would be no different.
It's definitely a problem of like the scope of the domain of things that it can refer to. I agree. The thing that stuck with me when I was researching this essay I did that was about puzzles and mystery writing was a comment that one writer said. I can't remember who it was. Sorry if they're definitely dead, so they don't mind. But it was like the genius of Agatha Christie, why she's lasted well beyond kind of, you know, a fairly workmanlike prose that she's often criticised for, is that the murderer is always the most obvious person. And like the things she does is take something that you would, if you were just presented with the facts, be like, well, it's him, like it's the jealous husband. And then she manages to obscure that through so many layers of like very, very clever and always confined to one domain series of things and events that happen that seem to rule things out, or like fundamental mistakes and assumptions that people make that all seem reasonable.
A proper red herring, not just a lie.
Yeah, not just, oh, well, he was actually dead. Oh, no, wait, he wasn't.
Oh, no, wait, he's alive,
Which is exactly what happens here, right? It's, oh, it was in the place. What do you mean it was in the place? I checked. No. You checked the wrong time of the place. Like, it's completely...
Oh, but I found a calendar. Oh, but the calendar wasn't there.
Yeah. It's just like it completely has the vibe of like a child came up with a puzzle.
Because the whole point of it is that, well, actually, some of the most dedicated people for years and years and years have looked at all the information and not been able to... have not been able to solve it. And it's because... Oh wow! Because of bullshit.
Because it wasn't there, and none of them have checked in the years since.
Exactly. Because I just because I said so for no real reason.
It wouldn't. It's the kind of problem that I can imagine being the first draft of your puzzle. Like, I think the game analogy is quite good because this would work as like a point and click adventure.
Yeah, 100%.
You appear on that street. You know there is something you have to do to alter the time frame.
We literally played like a game the other week where it was about we had to change the time and places in order to get certain clues and help each other.
And if the answer was, well, that thing just wasn't there until it was, then you'd be like, okay, that's very unsatisfying.
The game is busted.
Bad. Yeah.
Like because we played the Rusty Lake games, right? And the one unsatisfying puzzle in the entire like franchise that we found so far was one where it was like everything had to be 6. But for no reason.
Yeah.
You couldn't work out that was it. You could have done it maybe through a trial and error over the course of about 5 hours.
Yeah.
But it was just, it had to be 6.
It just can't be arbitrary. And yet, I think the fundamental issue that Ernest is grappling with is that he doesn't know whether to make this a book about the solving of what could be some quite fun, light-hearted, not very deep, but just enjoyable puzzles, or if he wants to make this a book about Wade. And because I think it's almost as simple a problem as it just being from Wade's perspective. Like, I don't think there's a way he could write the novel from here on out that removes enough of the hateful character of Wade.
Yeah.
Even if the puzzles are now like world-class excellent.
I
it's
don't
always
want
gonna
him
be-
to solve
yeah,
them.
like
I do
we're
not want
rooting
him to
against
solve
him.
them.
And the way the like self-satisfaction that will be present in every single step of the journey to solving them, no matter how obvious or arbitrary the leap, is such that like Wade is just the main obstacle to fun. It's the same way that like National Treasure, it's not a film about Nicolas Cage's character. He's largely
No.
immaterial apart from
Yeah.
the fact that Nicolas
He
Cage
knows
is
the
such an
history.
entertaining
Yeah.
presence. Like, you could sub in almost any character and that works, because it's not a film about him, it's a film about the plot, the
Yeah.
story. And this book wants to be both and succeeds at neither in really,
Yeah.
really like glaring lights turning on at the end of a night in the club. Fuck me, everyone's a lot uglier.
Oh God, it's awful.
It's
oh
just
no,
like
everything's gone wrong.
Inescapable. Speaking of a kind of inescapable wrongness, let's just cap off this beautiful episode by ruining our lives by virtue of Chuck Wendig's witch bullshit.
It's really good because we're talking about this idea of what's a good conclusion to a puzzle
Yeah.
or a game or a story and whatnot. And here we're going to conclude off the list. We've got 1, 2.
You're saying this is the end?
4, 5,
Oh, and then that's no more Chuck.
6.
Can I just press you on this
Go
point?
on.
Then there's no more Chuck on the show.
Well, there's no more of this article. But Chuck's got a whole website.
And a book. Obviously.
Oh yeah.
Fuck, maybe we should do a bonus
in
then of
order
Chuck's
to-
book.
In order to properly kind of scrape every little bit of advice from the internet's Chuck
Yeah.
Wendig's barrel.
Yeah, pick his brain, as he might say.
Yeah. But he means in a literal zombie way.
Yeah,
Pick the brain.
fuck, I bet he does that some way.
probably. So we're going clues 20 to 25. Six, not clues. Tips.
Tips. For those who don't know, Chuck Wendig is a writer of books in the Star Wars extended universe and of the most obnoxious blog and Twitter feed.
His douchebag.
Yeah, he doesn't come
annoys
across
me.
well.
Yeah. Okay, so
Great advice, though.
tip number 20. Molt.
Okay.
When in doubt, shed your flesh. Let your true author spirit emerge from the leavings of your discarded scale and leathery epidermis.
I didn't know molting could refer to skin. I thought that was like a fur-only situation, but that's on me.
No, well, yeah, but see, you're learning.
Yeah, no, I
You're
appreciate
learning
that.
that. That was the end of that tip.
Okay, so it didn't really link it back to writing.
What
does
it
it mean?
said about your true author spirit. Because
Right.
you know how sometimes when you're
TAS.
trying to write a song, you're like, oh, my skin's in the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
I
that's-
want to let the music out, but
does
there's
happen.
too much skin.
Yeah, like when Aslan makes him peel all his scales off.
Yeah.
Love that bit.
Listen to Le Guin.
Okay.
Ursula
This
K.
is
Le
good
Guin
advice.
once famously said of writing is a toilet man's job. I don't know what it means, but she said it to me last night in a dream. Always follow your dreams is really the larger point I'm trying to make.
Is he libelling Ursula Le Guin?
Yeah, having last
dead, much better writer.
called Margaret Atwood a lycanthropic bear person.
It's
This
weird.
week it's weird. It's
Weird that they're both women.
almost like he hates them. But I'm not saying that. he
No.
does.
We would
I
never.
am not saying that.
Yeah.
I in fact didn't say.
I'm saying that someone could take that.
Saying you could read this article and come away with a real conclusion.
Saying that Ursula Le Guin came to you in a dream and talked about the toilet man is its own kind of respect, I suppose.
That's what Aretha sang about. 22. Fuck it. Just pretend.
Cool.
You can get all the benefits of being a writer just by telling people you're a writer. Something, I think, letting the mask slip there a little from Chuck.
Just by writing a tip after tip approach to blogging.
It's okay. They won't follow up. Nobody reads books. You can just say it. I'm a writer. Oh, really? Uh-huh. Then you name some made-up books you wrote. Oh, I wrote The Judas Contingency and its sequel, The Red Pumpkin. Nobody will ever go check your work. They won't buy it. They'll probably tell you they already read your books. My mum loved that one, the person will say. God, people are the worst.
That's quite a depressing one from Chuck. I feel like he's got some anger. Well, obviously he has, because he's so sexually aggressive in every single tip.
Every
that
single
would
thing you
possibly
write.
accommodate it.
Yeah.
But like that didn't match the tone of the rest of the article, which has been whimsical, irreverent, all our favourite qualities. That one just sounded like he's annoyed that people haven't read any of his books.
Well, no, like, and the simple fact of the matter is he could say he'd written as many books as he wants, and I will never check. I will never find.
That's true.
Out.
I have never checked. He is right.
24. You must join a critique group.
Okay.
Stories are best when they are formed by committee. A critique group is an excellent way to ensure that your story is something everyone agrees on. Many best-selling novels have maximised mediocrity, turning it into a bona fide art form. And a critique group is a very good way to achieve that weaponised cromulence quickly.
Oh, cromulence. That's a Simpsons word.
Turns up in all of the best tweets
That
as
is
well.
good.
Bonus, a critique group, if given enough time, soon becomes a cult. And if you write really well, your story can become the cult's holy book. And then one day...
No, he's doing that thing again.
And then one
He's
day...
escalating
And then
to
one
comic
day,
effect.
you'll be naked in the woods.
Oh, fuck.
Summoning, and then this is all caps, Lord Verbilex, the recondite scion of turgid wordsmithery, heretic of the prose lands.
He's so horny.
And he's your god now. So kill a goat and get writing, you stupid vessel.
Wow. It's just every chance he gets, he'll make someone naked or doing something like furiously. He's got a lot bubbling under the surface.
Everything is jacking off.
Essentially,
That is his writing.
Posting is a form of masturbation.
And the final tip 25, and I feel like this is one that we'll be taking.
Yep. Never read Chuck Wendig again.
Never take advice from writers.
Cool.
Is the tip, yeah. We don't know what the hell we're doing either. And if we did, we wouldn't spend time telling you how to do it. We'd just be doing it.
Oh.
And then underneath, so then there's a picture of the front cover of his book, The Kick-Ass Writer.
That's a cool name.
1001 Ways to Write Great Fiction, Get Published, and Earn Your Audience.
Let me just check with you. Was it 1001 of those?
1001.
Okay. I forbid
And you
from buying that
you
book.
said that you
I
wanted us
forbid
to do it. And then in all caps underneath that, he says, cool, so now buy my book of writing advice, okay? Great, do it or you'll die. This is the only way to be a writer. Read it and it becomes a gateway allowing you to manifest your final form. It is full of bees for eating and wish-granting cats. Buy this book now before the Galactic Author Guild super bans it from all corners of the interstitial realm. Hurry, god damn it, shit.
Fuck, that was quite funny. You've got to give him that. So I liked that tip 25 was just a get out of jail free card for like, if my advice all sucks, which it does, then my real advice is, the whole thing was like a performance art piece about why not to listen to me and people like me. I think that's always a good sign when you have to undermine the content of your own work in its delivery and very inception.
I thought, just because I thought this while you were saying that.
Yeah.
Because I just scrolled down a little further.
No, there's no need to read anymore.
Well, what it is
I was about to stop the episode.
There's a comment section that I thought you might like to hear.
Is it well received?
Let me tell you.
Chuck Simps.
Jade M. Wong says, as always, you are hilarious and awesome.
False.
And always provide that much needed oomph to get my muse to work.
Jade M. Wong's an anagram of I am Chuck Wendig.
You may not know what the hell you're doing, but whatever it is, keep doing it, Chuck. Brackets, did that make sense?
Fuck, she's writing in the style.
Yeah,
he's infecting people.
Everyone is. It's like that film we watched.
Yeah, spreading through language.
Yeah. But this Stephen R. Orr said, the single best post on writing ever.
No.
Like, ever.
Oh, love the witches.
The Urban Spaceman commented, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's a very bad smell coming from somewhere in your walls. No, it wasn't Junior, and it wasn't the cat dogs. I think one of your previous Wallies may have died back there. That's what happens when you plug up the air holes we drill for vital oxygen purposes.
In other news,
I hope people have found something better than space diapers to be annoyed at you over. Brackets, and congrats on single-handedly ruining SW, by the way. You must be so proud. Because that's some excellent writing advice. Thanks for taking the time to share. Good luck outrunning the GAG. P.S. Don't know. I assume something Authors Guild?
Star Wars? Oh, yeah, maybe. The Galactic Authors Guild, oh, yeah.
P.S. What the hell what the hell is on your head? Is it a waffle? Is it a hashtag? Did tinfoil get replaced without me getting the memo?
Even the criticising vibe, even the critics of Chuck are adopting his, like they're meeting him on his own terms linguistically and phrasing it in such a very annoying way.
Sorry, this is a good one. Cepheus42.
Yeah.
Now 42, I think.
Oh,
You
it's
all
the
know.
sci-fi number.
Yeah.
Yes.
I need more clarity on the bees.
No.
What's an appropriate amount? How much is too much? Can we dip them in their own honey first? Or is that
People are
like
funny.
really weird? Does it matter if it's European or African bees? That's definitely a Monty Python
Is it?
reference, yeah. What about South American killer bees? Come on, don't leave me hanging here. They're swarming. I need this info now. Great article, Chuck. Glad to see you weathered the hailstorms the other day. We hid inside your
I don't know
beehives.
what this hailstorm was.
Well, do you not know? He's the one who led the charge against the Internet Archive.
Oh, what? But is this what they're referring to here?
Pretty sure, yeah, because
Yeah.
this is from 2017. which
For
I'm
people
pretty
who
sure.
don't know, the Internet Archive is, as it sounds, a very good non-profit organisation that archives things on the internet, including websites,
And
old
books.
music, old books, all kinds of things. And Chuck found out that there was a very small amount of piracy going on, and he tried to have the whole thing shut down.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because he wants more money.
I think partly successfully as well.
Yeah, I think he did manage to get
Yeah.
something about it.
Because he's
changed.
a cunt.
Well, he's a great friend of the artist.
You don't want to be giving this stuff away for free. That's why he only gives us 25 of the 1001.
Yeah, for sure. You've
Here,
gotta
because
buy it.
otherwise that's it.
Well, you've got to.
Yeah.
Got to make a buck.
So yeah, I think what's good there is not just
Well, it's
the
it's
advice, but it's also to know that people are seeing the advice for what it is, which is very good.
Yeah. Really good. And speaking of things that are very good,
Go
is
on.
this podcast, and we'd love it. Oh, we'd love it, wouldn't we? If you went over to shame.city/book review, which will open up the iTunes store in your device, and left us a little 5-star review. A little 5-star review would
How
be
many-
really appreciated.
what?
Any amount of stars
Okay,
that you
cool.
like, but
About
5 is
is
mandatory.
good, yeah.
About 5 is pretty good. Don't be doing less than that, because you don't want to be the person that pulls our rating down, do
Yeah,
you?
if you don't like the show, just imagine that it's out of 10.
Yeah.
And then 5 is still
bang
you're still
average.
slagging us off.
Absolutely. That would be super appreciated. Other than that, we've got a Twitter at Big Bad Books, which you can follow, where we occasionally tweet things. That's Twitter for you, isn't it?
That's
I
it.
don't
That's
need to
what we
explain
do.
it is. We've also got at Shame City's Gang. That's the one. For general Shame City stuff, we've got 2 shows on the network at the moment. More coming soon. We stream 4 nights a week. Sometimes more at the moment.
Yeah.
Declan's been doing some Pokemon at twitch.tv/shamecity, or you can go to shame.city/twitch.
Join us on the Discord,
fuck
shame.city/Discord.
not?
There's
Yeah.
all sorts going on there.
You'll get notified when we go live on
And there's
Twitch.
lovely people in there.
Oh,
lovely
beautiful.
people, wonderful conversations.
Yeah, and a bunch of bees.
Oh,
Yeah.
no,
And witches.
no
Oh,
witches
no witches,
policy.
no,
There's a no
Yeah.
witch. You have to click a little
an opt-in.
to say no.
It's really
oh,
cool.
it's-
Look, the book continues and will continue with it.
certainly will.
I want to put on record having high hopes for where it's going to go next, so that if it fucks me over,
Yeah.
know that I'll be deeply disappointed.
Oh no.
Until 2 weeks from today, I've been Isaac, you've been.
I've been Declan.
See you in the Oni.
Bye guys.